So take it away, Dave and Mackie.
And welcome to
Dave.
That's Dave. And Mackie's. That's me. Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. It's home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversations in the chat room, and a place to get your merch. Get on with the merch. This is show number 503. 3 and 500. 503. That's 3 more shows than 500. We're in our second millennium. You can catch us on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. I really have to buy one. I'm going to find one. I'm going to buy it. If you missed Solaris' show, that's okay. She had Russ Tanner on her guest from Global Skywatch, and they were talking about chemtrails, not contrails, chemtrails, and world events. And I know people are skeptical about this, but I got to tell you, it's a thing. Now, a condensation trail, right, is left in the sky and disappears fairly quickly. A chemtrail lingers on and on and on. The archives, where you can catch your shows in case you did miss it, are free. Just go to the website. By the way, you can get some merch there as well, or subscribe. You can just become a supporter, a subscription supporter, if you will. And you can look at the archives. It's the third option on the top. There's home, schedule, and archives. And if you click on that, it'll take you right to a whole bunch of really awesome content. And that's what we all crave these days, content. This Solaris' show, or anyone's show for that matter, right ahead on in and check it out. Before we start in earnest, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which I broadcast, and for me here, it is the Darug people. And Dave?
The Darkinjung.
Thank you, Dave. And we would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Yeah, just very quickly. Nice, Joe. We've got Joe Biden in the chat room. Welcome, Joe. Crazy Joe Biden, hey? Creepy, crazy Joe Biden. You've got your tin for that diaper on. That's good to know.
Do you know what? I asked whether he prefers Sleepy or Creepy Joe, and he prefers Freaky Joe.
Freaky Joe. Now he likes to freak it. Freaky.
With his tinfoil diaper on.
I know, right? How good is that? Just very quickly.
That's a good shout out to the chat room, by the way.
Look, it's a good.
Well, that was a big lightning strike.
Oh, did you? Oh, yeah, we've got a bit
very
of a storm
close
happening here on the east coast of, I guess the southern east coast of Australia. Big storm, big rains, big lightning. So look, chemtrails. Yeah, look, people are two minds, but I can assure you, I've seen condensation trails linger in the sky for a very, very long time. Now, condensation trail is pretty straightforward, right? It is the water vapor that is expelled as the plane, streaks across the sky, and because it is very, very cold, the water crystals, they form this trail, condensation trail. Really, that's what it is. Okay, and after a while, those crystals, they melt or disappear or diffuse, as it were, and you don't see them anymore. That's not really a long process because the atmosphere is quite dynamic, and it doesn't really let it linger for too long. A chemtrail, on the other hand, doesn't dissipate very quickly at all, and it usually, and this is really the funny thing, it usually comes in a fairly interesting pattern, usually a matrix pattern, if you will, like a tic-tac-toe kind of square arrangement.
Child scribblings.
Yeah, but it is certainly it doesn't look like a natural phenomenon. Number one, like a cloud, and number two, it lasts a lot longer than a contrail, a condensation
Mackie,
trail.
I've seen, because I'm an avid aircraft person, air spotter, plane spotter, and my mum worked with Qantas, and I had a lot of hours in the air, as you do too. And watching them go over our house, the domestic flights where I live now, but international flights, previously back in Sydney, the contrail would not be there. It would disappear so quickly, usually as the plane's flying just less than a mile behind the plane. It was already disappearing.
Yeah.
But the chemtrails, or what we call chemtrails, they seem to make cloud. It not only leaves a single trail behind, but if there's very little air movement over the course of a few hours, it expands and gets thicker. And if you've got them crisscrossing the sky, it seems to just match the sky in a continuous blanket of cloud. It's really something. If you've not seen it, you really take some time out to observe it.
And that's definitely a thing. It's look, the phenomenon I like to liken, pardon the double Dutch, to crop circles. So people say, crop circles, nonsense, just a couple of guys, with a string and a wooden plank, etc., etc. And the truth is, yes, you can make those patterns with a plank and a wooden string. Yes, you can. And they've shown that they could. However, as with all things, and condensation and chemtrails fall in the same category here, there is a real thing and there's a thing that is not real. In a man-made, as it were, or a hoaxed kind of crop circle, the crop, right, the stems, etc., are crushed. That's the end of the crop. It's those stalks of wheat or rye or whatever it might be. They will no longer grow. They're dead because they've been trampled down. In the actual real crop circle phenomenon, and I don't know why people don't mention this more often, but it's a thing. I find I'm really I don't know, at a loss as to why people don't mention this more often. In the real crop circle phenomenon, the stalks, wheat, rye, whatever it might be, are woven together, interestingly enough, and not crushed down. It's almost they're like gently bent down, and they continue to grow. They're not trampled down. They're not dead. They continue to grow and ripen. And that is the difference. This is how you tell the difference between the actual phenomenon and a hoaxed phenomenon. And again, Dave, it is the same thing with a lot of these phenomena out there, right? Yes, of course there are hoaxes, and yes, there are people that are trying to take the mickey or I guess discredit the entire fraternity of truth seekers and conspiracy theorists and researchers by hoaxing. And it happens. Of course it does. Of course it does. But be able to distinguish between the hoax and the reality, and you can. There's always something that sets the hoax apart, or the reality for that matter, right? Just wanted to get that out there because people have this notion that once something has been proven as a hoax, that's it. No, it really isn't. People have been faking UFO sightings, Dave. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing, and yet here we are with the Navy, specifically the Navy, saying, "Oh no, this is a real thing. This Tic Tac, yeah, it's real." So where does that leave the hoaxes? Oh yeah. So that's real, is it? I'll be leaving through this door here now. So it's okay. So that's the difference, guys. And please don't give in to the armchair, debunkers, critics. Right now, it's good to be critical. Absolutely, you have to be critical. You have to have a critical mind. What does it mean? Well, what it means is you have to evaluate truth, information, research for yourself. That's what it means to be critical. It doesn't mean to say no to everything. That's not critical. That's just saying no to everything. That's just being a parrot. Okay, that's what that is. Yeah, right. So it must be understood that having a critical mind, which is a good thing, means you evaluate the facts for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now with the pandemic and the vaccines and all these, because it's a rock and a hard place. You're literally caught between a rock and a hard place. There is no good decision. I don't want to talk too much about it because this is not health advice, but this is my opinion. Right now, there are no good decisions. It doesn't matter what decision you make. Chances are you or someone will suffer. from your decision.
Joe Biden's fallen asleep in the chat room.
Now I can see that. Oh, look. Hey, Joe! Little
Wake up,
kids!
Joe.
Little kids around. Wait.
Don't push the nurse button.
I shouldn't say that.
It's a mute button.
I love the leader, Joe Biden. I love you, leader.
Do you know what, Mickey? Do you know what?
Tell me.
This week, I've decided, rather than the leader, I've decided to say I love the AI.
Oh, you're trying to hedge your bets. I like it.
Yeah, I'm jumping ahead, Matt.
I like it.
I love the AI.
You know, you could go on the next step and
What's
just
that?
say, I love everybody except the critical thinkers. I hate those. They make my skin crawl and my shoulders itch in unspeakable ways. True story. I was there. But no, look, you're right though. And the thing is, once AI comes online, yes, it will go through all of the information on all of the interweb and say, "Oh, Dave, well ahead of your time. I like you, Dave. I shall keep your brain in a jar next to my console, and I shall feed it peanuts."
Good.
I don't know what that means.
That's very Futurama-ish.
I know.
When they were using fish food to feed the heads in the jars.
I was channeling Matt Groening. And I would like to have a shout out though. A friend of the show's tied the knot this weekend. Acid, congratulations, my friend. And what a lovely thing to do that is. And I wish you all the best. And
what did he tie the knot in?
Oh, he got married.
Because it usually makes the string shorter.
No, it does, right? So they're closer now. They're no longer 2 meters apart. They're now 1 meter apart. So
excellent.
I don't know what that means either. But I would like to give you my best. And this is the time where I tell you, turn down the volume. Sorry, Sim. No. There's a story behind that which I can't divulge because ACU and CIA, NSA, as well as several Russian agencies are after me. So I cannot say what this was about.
Yeah, and the new agency, Mickey, that we only just recently discovered called ACES.
ACES.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's another one.
Yeah.
Who knew? Yeah, it's like discovering the NSA, right? It's been there for 50 years.
Yeah.
And wow, really? There's an NSA? Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You have an FBI now? What? FBI? What?
Well, yeah, I did the math on it recently and discovered that where was I that whole time? Yeah. Look, Becky, I don't know. I'm gonna eat well today.
Good.
It's been tough for me recently, but I've got a brisket in the smoker and 2 racks of ribs, and they've been in there 2 + 2, and it's going to be a delicious,
That's incredible, and not only that, it's completely vegan and calorie free. Dave is just a magician that way.
Do you know what? I've saved the planet because the grass that those creatures ate they're safe now, right? There's no more. There's no longer a predator.
Thank you for the segue. So I gotta get this off my chest.
Where on earth can you go from there? Let's see it. Championship segue entrance number 1.
It really was. So we're all talking about climate change and doing everything for the environment, etc., right? We are. Now, this is the kicker. Doing all those things, right? All these green things, as it were, is actually not necessarily better for the environment or for you. Well, it's crazy talk. So no, let's do this. So what is bad for the environment? I'm talking about meat production first. Are these massive feedlots? Where you got tens of thousands of cattle or sheep or whatever it might be, and these massive sheds with hundreds of thousands of chickens, etc. That's bad. That's bad both for the environment because there's a lot of chemicals in there. Okay, hormones are being injected into these poor creatures, so they really come into
they call the boys
maturity.
into girls.
Well, yeah, that's true, right? And it's a bad thing. So it's bad for you. It's also bad for the animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the chemicals, they don't help anyone. Now, interestingly enough, these mass farms that producing like corn or wheat on a massive scale
Mhm.
also use a lot of chemicals. A lot of chemicals, and some of the crop is GMO, genetically modified. So those are actually bad things. In fact, the offset, right, that you have there, if you were to farm organically or raise your livestock in the fashion that our grandparents did,
Mhm.
that would actually be better for the planet than these mass-produced, even vegan stuff, even if it's just plants, because all the chemicals we put into the air and all the other things we do for these massive operations are not at all sustainable. If you have a smaller farm where you raise livestock, sustainably, yes, it's more expensive, right? And people will pay more. Will have to pay more if they want to eat beef. Then they have to pay more for it, right? So cheap beef is bad for the environment, but so is cheap wheat and cheap corn is also bad for the environment. Yeah, just to be very clear on this. So by going to vegan lifestyle, unless you source all of your food from organic producers, companies, farms, etc., is worse for the environment than if you just kept a normal diet and kept going. Of course, the better way to do this is to be seasonal, number one. So you just eat what's in season. Because transport, do you think that just happens? When things are being imported or exported all across the world,
teleported.
That's what's happening. It's just whoosh, there it is. Okay, so that's not the thing. So eating seasonally, raising your livestock in a humane or in a proper fashion, right? And letting the animals live how they should, and then if you do want the meat, then okay, you can do that too. But at least they're not pumped full of chemicals, and they haven't eaten all this GMO feed that needed more chemicals yet, etc., etc., etc. So you do all of this, and if we had not changed, Dave, the way our ancestors farmed 100 years ago, 200 years ago, if we hadn't, we wouldn't be in as much strife as we are today. And then Joe Biden here, he's channeling Greta Thunberg.
He certainly is.
Blah, 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 climate emergency, blah, blah, blah. He fell asleep, He fell asleep.
He did fall asleep. and Australia's Prime Minister spoke to an empty room.
Oh, that was gold.
I know, right? He looks so passionate too.
Yeah, I know.
What time slot did they give him? Was it the 4:30 a.m. to 5 a.m. slot?
Yeah, straight after 5 espressos. So, I'm awake.
He obviously just landed. He probably didn't even have a ticket, and he's bust in there. No, I'm kidding. Right? So one of the things that I thought was really cool that came out of the climate discussions was, if no one has seen Cowspiracy on Netflix, it's a Netflix only.
Oh, okay.
Do watch it. It's important.
Oh, okay.
Because the amount of cattle that we have now on the planet is greater in the emissions than all the motor vehicles. Methane is a climate.
Is it just beef cattle, or do we include sheep and other?
Oh no, all animals that we either use for clothing, so sheep and wool, or we eat the sheep, or we eat the steers, right? Eat the cows, or we use them for milk. Doesn't matter. Regardless, the infrastructure, animal-wise, that keeps the human race going is actually a greater climate emergency than all of the stuff that we're doing otherwise. And it was called Cowspiracy. No one wanted to touch it, but it actually came up in this, let's call it World Economic Forum climate version, which is, the Great Reset, and attempting to, have these initial discussions, which kind of line right up with Agenda 21. So all of the things we're doing for all of the people we have is causing the problem, and therefore we do need to do something about it, says
Dave,
the people
Dave,
in
please.
the committee.
Save my problem, Dave. I mean, I can
And-
see, but please.
Yeah,
Dave,
I know,
please
I
save me.
know. So all good advertising is you create the problem and then you sell a solution, and that's a segue to one of my pieces here. But the first,
Nice.
I think, the first thing that we need to talk about with this is how long has this agenda been created? How long has it taken for us to all get to this point? Is the real emergency in their solution? Is it being solved? Is a good question. Because that, was it just, how was it designed that this is the outcome? Right? So anyway, I just thought it was really cool. What Australia said, we weren't going to sign up to the methane problem because we had so much cattle, right? There's companies buying land now in South America, so they can just claim it as their carbon capture, which is really cool. I think if you had a hemp farm over half of Australia, if that was even possible, that you could sell all of that carbon credit to other people because you wouldn't be using any. I think the carbon economy is at the beginning now again. There was some delay because of capitalism, decided that it wasn't right, or maybe they weren't positioned ready to go, right? So they denounced it. And, oh, no, that whole thing, that carbon, that's going to cost you money. And then they went, great, now we've made it go away. Let's go and buy all the land up.
Yes, let's do that.
And now, hey, look, we're ready to go. The climate thing's bad again, isn't it? Yeah, so the technology in capturing carbon from the atmosphere is a thing, and it's certainly a place we can go. But as far as some of the things that they're talking about, they're ignoring some of the real obvious ones. So one is recycling carbon by using E85 in a regular combustion engine saves 85% of the carbon emissions, because only 15% of the carbon emissions are fossil fuel, and the rest, and the 85%, is recyclable carbon. Does that make sense? So you're creating it by fermenting your vegetable matter, which is grown, which takes it from the atmosphere. It's just a recirculative system. I could run 100% ethanol in my car if I tuned it right. And it's got a high performance, but it doesn't matter. Straight away, if in 1 year the government decided to mandate that all combustion vehicles must be converted to E85, then immediately Australia would, within that year, we would then achieve an 85% reduction in vehicle emissions.
That's significant.
Yeah, and no one's talking about it because Meki.
Electric.
It's all electric, isn't it? That's the only way to do it. But what makes the electricity?
Exactly. No,
I like that voice that I just did.
Yeah.
What makes the electricity? I don't know.
It just happens, Dave.
Yeah.
Electricity is just in the ether. It's in the ether,
That's
Dave.
right.
Don't you know, Dave?
Yeah, kind of.
Why don't you know that? Why don't you know that, Dave?
Shrubbery. I don't know why. I don't know why, right?
I'm not an old woman. I'm 36.
Old woman. Man. Monday, Meki and I are going to do that sketch.
We have to do that.
We might do it offline and just edit it together so we get it right, and do it ourselves. So look, Meki, the segue, of course, was it's kind of disappeared now, but the segue was about Big Pharma and their change of position. See, that made me spin around in my chair.
It's Ben. Like,
so the Molyneux Piravir drug that has now been approved in the UK to treat COVID. There's talk of another drug which is a cure.
Yeah, 95 or something. It was a high percentage of.
Yeah, not Molnupiravir, but another one. Yes, and what it does is it mutates the virus within 3 generations of the mutations, which isn't very long. It's like just half a day or a day. It's now so ruined in RNA that it can't do anything to anybody. It basically destructs it, and it's really cool. So, but remember that none of these things. I have to be very careful what I say here. None of these things suddenly appear today. So the first bastion of sales was a warehouse full of vaccines. Then, right near the end of that, where we're going to have a second, like a booster shot, they come out with, "Hey, we've got these things now." Yeah. Great. You can now buy these from us. And we've got an even more expensive one, Mickey. That's $700 a dose thing. Yeah, you can have that. You can have that, right? So you can be vaxxed and have a booster, then take this other thing. Hang on a minute. I think my whole life is now medicated.
Isn't that the plan? That's the plan, right?
It kind of sounds like it.
I thought that was the plan. Oops. You haven't been read in. Oops.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, kids, start my car. Right. So the US has blocked, a US appeals court has temporarily, I should say, blocked Joe Biden. I know you're in the chat room there, but just letting you know that they've blocked your plan for a vaccine mandate for business. And the law would require workers at private companies with more than 100 employees to get fully vaccinated against COVID or be tested weekly. Yeah. Right? I'm tested every 3 days because of my daughter, but
the court found some constitutional issues with that. So
yeah, grave statutory and constitutional. Yeah. So in Australia, our government stayed one step back from mandatory by using disincentives for those who aren't. So right now, I'm fully vaxxed, so are you, Mickey, and we can go to the shops. And I saw my daughter in a play today.
Oh, nice.
Right, which is really cool. But you had to be fully vaxxed to go into that. And I know that there's some stores now that I've got to be fully vaxxed and provide the certificate to show that I am. That mandatory side wasn't the government's control. They gave that to the private industries in Australia. And said, if you want your employees to be 100% vaccinated, go ahead. We'll allow you to do that. And so now we're in a period, Mickey, of the Great Resignation, where people are fighting against the mandatory nature of this. And there's a lot of talk around I should be in control of what goes into my body stance.
Yep.
And look, I think for those people, in advance of what we're seeing, right? It kind of scares me to see that this is essentially, the Brave New World, Logan's Run, Soylent Green. This is all the beginning where we don't have any control. And all of that thing, all of those sci-fis, Mickey, we've seen the dystopian future. In that future, none of the people have a say.
And look, that's correct. Now, the funny thing is this, Dave. So, while people still have a say, I need to give you a couple of data points. 1, 4,000. That's 4 with 3 zeros. 4,000 medical or health employees, nurses, doctors, etc., in Queensland were stood down because they refused to take the vaccination. That's 4,000. That's right. A lot of people that make a choice not to get paid anymore. Right? Yeah. So they're on paid leave, and that's going to run out at some point.
It's a whole hospital's worth.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is. I had lunch with a few of the family's friends, and a couple of them are doctors, fairly senior doctors as well, in Sydney. And they told me, oh yeah, look, quite senior medical professionals, doctors have refused to take the vaccine.
Mhm.
They've refused to, so they quit. These are senior people, like there's a transplant surgeon and others as well. I mean, these are not just Joe Dudley, Doolittles. I mean, these are actual senior medical professionals, and they have misgivings about it. And really, I don't know, Dave, that we can ever force anyone to do something. What I think is going to happen, we're going to see the fear barometer go up through various things, right? And it's going to, people will just, I guess they will just submit, because it's just, oh no, it's just too hard, or whatever it might be. And you're quite right. We are now getting people to do it by giving them extra bits. Like, I mean, we all were free 2 years ago. We could do whatever we wanted. Go out, have a coffee, buy groceries, God forbid, maybe even go for a trip. And now, oh no, it's only the vaccinated people. Are you wearing your yellow star yet? Shouldn't say that. It's not the same thing. But we are creating two classes of people.
I heard the backpedaling from here. Mm-hmm.
I know. We are creating the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. Mm-hmm. This is now a clear delineation in our society, and there are certain things that the vaccinated can do, and there are certain things the unvaccinated cannot do.
That's right.
Right, and that's very, very clear. It's we have done this now, so it is. Yeah, you're right. By this incentive, Dave.
2 weeks ago, Mickey, I'm sitting in an RSL club celebrating my eldest daughter's 15th, and you needed to get vaccinated to go in. It's an RSL. This is the Returned Servicemen's League club. That's what it is. It's a club. And I'm sitting there looking around, and because all of it, the filter to get in was vaccination. And I saw that, what am I looking at? Duopoly? No? Maybe, right? So I'm seeing this, and I kind of felt like the elite, where I was privileged to something that someone who hadn't made those choices wasn't. Whether or not, Mickey, it was a vaccine, or if it was money, or I saw the likeness of that experience in what I was doing, and I kind of felt bad. I actually felt it. I didn't feel jubilant, like, suckers, look at me eating out, right? I didn't feel that at all.
Living my life.
This is my life. Yeah, I actually felt like this is definitely a turning point. I could imagine if this, that I'm going to put it back to the stars, if this was a place in Germany back when, and I was allowed into a restaurant, or South Africa, where I was allowed to ride the bus. Well, that's even America back in the 50s. So I could go into that cinema. I really felt that there was a separation in our society, and that we weren't going to go back from
it. Look, I don't think we will, and I think it's now I guess countries opening up around the globe. We'll see this going global. Will it be a vaccine passport? Well, it'll be something.
Kind of is
that will. Yeah, I guess so, right? It will be something, because a lot of airlines are requiring that of you now. You have to show proof, and whenever I go anywhere, I have to show my vax certificate to whoever really. It's like usually a person sitting there. Be it, I take my kids to swimming, or I go and buy coffee, or whatever it might be. There's someone checking. Now, in the large supermarkets,
I went to IKEA.
Really does.
I went to IKEA.
Did they do it?
Yeah, they wouldn't let you in unless you were double vaxxed.
See, at Woolies, not so much.
No, Coles the same.
Yeah, but look, ultimately though, it'll be the same when you're on the plane. You know, you may have to submit to a rapid test potentially before you board the plane. Maybe
PCR
once you
test,
come off
yep.
as well. So so there's this on and off coming, you know, and then once you or when you before you can actually maybe enter the airport, you okay, I'm double vaxxed. See, there it is. I got my booster shot. And then you land wherever you're going. You have to show it again, right? And it's and the funny thing is it's being normalized now, right? And this is really the great thing when you have these dictatorial or I guess autocratic regimes. They're just normalizing new modes of behavior. We've lived in for 2 years now. For 2 years, Dave, we lived in a state of heightened fear, where we they're going to lock down again. Oh no, we've got tens of people are infected and ones of people are dying. No, right? That's what it is in Australia. Overseas it's different, but there's this great fear that was generated, and we clamored and shouted for a solution, and bring our lives back and livelihoods for that matter. Do all of these things, and we'll submit, and that's where we are. We are at you're right, at the resignation phase, and it is a scary thing to behold, because it's these things don't happen overnight. You don't overnight, you're not cajoled into something. Even 9/11 took time to build up to some extent, right? It didn't happen that quickly, and certainly because one of the agenda points was to invade Iraq. That took a long time to manifest, and here similarly, it took 2 years, a good 2 years of constant fear bombardment for the vast majority of the population to crumble, and even the people in the know, like potentially David and myself, seeing no other way to function within society, and because of certain considerations for people in our family that are maybe not as well as others.
Yeah, that's right. So Australia hit 80% double vaxxed this weekend. Which is pretty good. But did you know, Mekki, that in the places in Australia where their vaccination rates are low, there's actually been advertised virus spikes?
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute.
But look, but the thing is this as well, right? I mean, like I said before, there is no good decision. There's this you are between a rock and a hard place. We all are. We are really and completely, not just figuratively, but literally between a rock and a hard place. You doesn't matter which region. And it when you play chess, you can't eat the king. The aim of the game of chess is to put the king into what is called checkmate. So you threaten the king, and you make sure that none of the king's escape routes are viable. So so it's threatened, but it can't move anywhere, and that's the end of the game. Game over, right? Checkmate. And that's where we are in many ways, because it doesn't matter which move we make, it's going to be a bad move.
So Mekki, with all of the research that had come at the point when I had to make my decision for the vaccine, I realized that it wasn't as a sufficient amount of positive information that I would voluntarily launch to get the vaccine. It wasn't at a point, say it was 10 years from now, right? And this this RNA technology was a thing, it didn't matter, it was all good, totally proven, blah blah. But at the point when I had to make my decision, it was still kind of a little young, the technology. And all of the long-term studies, or there's still no long-term studies, and we launched pretty quickly on it. And I think that the tech was so convinced that it was the right thing to do, it was the best thing, let's get it done. But those companies that were producing it now have another warehouse full of drugs that they want to sell us. And I think that the point here is, I went into a tech store, like call it, you just say Walmart, and because they had I'm kind of feeling as though, I go in day on, the first week, and I want to buy a toaster, and I walk out with a TV because they've just got too many TVs. They offered me one; it was on special. And the next week I go in for that same toast, which I still haven't bought, and they say, "Oh, the microwave ovens here, you've just got to get one of these because they're on special," and I still haven't got my toaster. It's because this is what they're selling us. I'm not saying it's bad. Mekki and I are double vaxxed. We're not doctors. We've looked at research but who cares? Your decisions are yours. And I just feel as though that they must have already been working on these other drugs the whole time.
Oh, for sure.
So, it's usually 7 to 10 years to market for something.
This has been in the planning, right? Maybe not in intricate detail, but it has been in the planning for thousands. And I know this sounds crazy. This has been in the planning for thousands of years. All of these historical moves, and this society we've created. In fact, more than thousands of years. I'll go as far as to say millions of years. Now, not every specific detail, but certainly the raw outline. And what you're seeing unfold right now, that has been in plan for hundreds of years. That's been planning all along, because there's tech involved here as well that was available to some for a very, very long time, and it is now come to fruition. And it's really important to understand that none of these things just happen. There's no such thing as a coincidence, not really, right? This doesn't just happen. This is stuff that is premeditated. This is stuff that has been planned well ahead of time.
In Einstein's, universe, in a box, it was all there already.
Oh, you do. Nice segue, my friend.
But, Maggie, I got to ask the question, did the Big Bang really happen?
Well, we don't know. And now there seems to be some evidence that maybe it didn't. I sent this to you. Because we talked about the background radiation, and et cetera, the redshift and so forth. And so I thought you might get a kick out of it. Whoa! You hear that? I'm sorry if you hear that. That's actually rain coming down. There's nothing I can do about that if you can hear the background noise.
Oh, is that what that sound
is? That's rain. Yeah, I do apologize.
I might fall asleep with that white noise.
I know, right? So did the bang really happen? So we don't know. Okay, now the research that we're talking about was presented by Eric Lerner, astronomer, on Wednesday at the 235th meeting of the American Astronomical Society in Honolulu in Hawaii. Now, it's not the first time that astronomers have disputed the Big Bang Theory. That's in part because the hypothesis is hard to study in real time. Instead, scientists depend on mathematical models and other theories, including Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity, to back up the origin story. Okay? But his research picks holes in one of the fundamental elements of the Big Bang, that there's an abundance of light chemical elements in the universe. According to the theory, light chemical elements such as helium, deuterium, and lithium began to form within the first few minutes of the Bang, while heavy elements originated in stars much later in the history of the universe. We know the stars are meant to be, the creators of the heavy elements. In fact, we're all made of star stuff.
That's right.
So that's the theory anyway. But the lighter materials, helium, deuterium, lithium, etc., they were made just after the Big Bang. Now, Lerner claims that exact observations of light elements show a notable gap between the predicted amount of elements in the universe according to the Big Bang and how much there actually is. For example, the Big Bang nucleosynthesis theory predicts that roughly 25% of the mass of the universe consists of helium. But stars formed in the early universe appear to have less than half the helium and less than 1/10 the lithium than that predicted by the theory, according to the study. The research suggests that the lowest lithium levels observed are less than 1% than those predicted by the theory. That in turn suggests that these light elements could not have existed before stars started forming in the universe. So what explains the origin of the universe, if not the Big Bang? Lerner suggests an alternative model he calls galactic origin of light elements hypothesis. Not going to say that too often. Big Bang is much catchier. In his alternative theory, light elements were created within the stars during the early stages of the evolution of galaxies, an idea Lerner based on observations of the oldest stars in the universe. The correct predictions of the Goal model, that's actually much easier, do not only fit the observations far better than does the Big Bang model, the production of the light elements by stars must occur, and if there was also production by a Big Bang, we would observe far more of these light elements than we do. Okay? Now, of course, his model is just one of many that rival the Big Bang, but no one has really quite caught on, or none of these theories. There's also a steady state universe hypothesis, which suggests that matter is still being created in the universe, and that is therefore infinite, with no beginning and no end. That's something I would subscribe to. While the black hole theory suggests the universe originated from a black hole, and there are different universes in every black hole. Okay, so my point here is, and the reason we're talking to you about this is because we don't know anything, and people talk about Big Bang this and Big Bang the other, and that as though it's a fact. These are all still just theories, right, Dave? It's just something that we're trying to noodle out. And if anybody is dogmatic about it, then they're fools, because something else can come along and just knock it right off its pedestal.
Yeah, I like my theory. But, Mackie, the Big Bang sounds like a great description, but all of the other things that they had to create was all worked out on the redshift, the Doppler effect that they've attached to things that they're looking at in the sky, in dots of light. They had to create dark matter because didn't seem to be enough matter, right? Dark energy. They had to create this theory about this ever expanding universe to make the math seem like it worked, rather than just, if you eliminate all these imaginary things that they've had to create, which, man, I've watched a trillion experts, give or take, a trillion. I've watched a trillion of them talk about this as though it was real. And yet there is no test that they can get in a spaceship and fly to the horizon and measure it. That you just can't. And they're saying that everything on the outer edge is moving away at the speed of light. And they're saying that the universe is expanding at the speed of light still. And that
faster than the speed of light.
Yeah. and that the distance between us and the nearest star would be expanding. And everything from the distance between us and every other star would be expanding. But we can't measure it, they say. Okay, so if it's expanding the speed of light, but we can't measure it, then how can you say what you're saying? Oh, it's just everybody knows it, right?
I think we've got an independent thought alarm. Excuse me. Aha! Thank you. You've taken the words right out of my mouth.
Shut up. Man, you hurt me. But Mackie, I was watching all these quantum theory scientists speaking about it, and I stumbled upon this lady who debunks everything.
Okay.
She's a quantum theorist, and she debunks the double slit delayed choice experiment, saying everyone's wrong. Everybody else is wrong. And she debunks it. She puts a pretty good point forward, but she doesn't knock the actual double slit experiment. And so she is kind of annoying. There's a lot of she talks about everything, and she's getting tons of views because people are looking for an alternate view, another voice that doesn't echo the same thing. It's not an echo chamber with her. And I applaud her in putting these videos out. She is quite knowledgeable. She does know what she's talking about. But she seems like an outlier in the science where all the others, I'm not sure yet. I know that the double slit experiment does what it does, and when you look at it, changes. And she says that isn't kind of the case. But to make her point, she then goes on to the delayed choice, saying it doesn't matter which other detector at the end after it's already hit the thing. Quantum entanglement is already in play, and it doesn't matter which one you look at, and it's going to be the same. It's a blob. She keeps talking about this blob. So, what are you talking about? What blob? It's two different. There's two different things you see when you try to observe one side, and she really twists. The way that she's able to argue it is by twisting the evidence on the screen. into a certain description rather than what everybody else has said and what the science says. So I don't know. I kind of have to watch her with my teeth gritting. Gnashing of teeth.
What is her? What? So if she's not knocking the double slit, what is she knocking then?
So the delayed choice experiment says it proves nothing. Because
okay, so but
she's
everybody
attempting.
can.
What she's attempting to do is say the premise is that the delayed choice, if you discover which slit it went through after it's already hit by having a copy, an entangled copy, go in another path, and you measure that after its pair has hit the screen, as you and I know that, Mickey, right? That the pair that you're measuring is not the same as the original one, and you get a blob on the screen rather than, the differential between there being two slits and a wave form.
Yeah, but stop right there. So if it's not the original one, what is it? It's just appeared out of nowhere? Is that?
Yeah, it's an entangled copy, she says, and
okay. A lot of people can say a lot of things, right?
Yeah, I know, and it kind of really annoys me to listen to it, but I don't want to be the person who only ever listened to one side.
Oh, no, I completely agree.
But I'll tell you, it hurts. It's like, remember Syriana? Mickey, do you remember Syriana?
I do actually, yes. Yeah.
The Nespresso guy. I'm just going to call him that.
Mr. Clooney. Yes,
yeah, Mr. George Clooney. When they pull his thumbnail out or something, right? The fingernail or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah, great scene. Clearly painful, if it weren't a prop. But that's what it's like watching her talk about it.
Oh, I see. I understand.
Yeah. You didn't know where I was going then.
No, but now I'm with you. I understand.
I was going to say pulling teeth, and I go, oh no, pulling thumbnail. Oh, there you go. They'll use that. It's like a musical lick. I chose to do a different musical lick halfway through. Oh, tough crowd.
Why? Because I can. I can do that.
It's the way my poor brain works. So yes, this week is crazy, Meki. There's stuff going on all around the world, which is at new heights as normal, as the new normal. There's no steady state. Meki, I was watching. I know we got 1 minute. It was the drought in Russia. The northern states are so bad now that the olive harvest is almost completely devastated. It's nuts. Now, I didn't know they grew olives wherever they were, but it was all in a foreign language and it was some subtitles, and I got to follow it that way. There's no water, and they're in the same situation as Germany has been. So it's pretty bad. They're at the third year of the drought, almost no water at all, except for the flood event. But outside of that, no, there's nearly 2 meters of soil, 3 meters of soil. It's bone dry.
See, and this is something that's important that you mentioned, is because we're talking about climate change and global warming, etc., etc. Well, it's going global warming, then there should be, everything should be warmer. Well, no, not really, because it's our climate, our atmosphere, if you will, is a very complex animal, right? And changes, are creating, different kind of microclimates, etc., etc. So some areas of the world will be in drought, like Dave has just outlined. Other areas in the world will be flooding, because we're changing the distribution, or we've had for thousands of years, of weather patterns. That's what's changing. That's what climate change means. It's a real enough thing. I'm not saying it's human caused or not human caused. It doesn't really matter, because it's happening, right? Can we do something about it? Maybe. Should we take better care of our planet? Yeah. Forget climate change for a second. I mean, everybody's so focused on it. Forget climate change. Should we emit less toxins into the air? Yes. Should we stop cutting down trees? Yes. I mean,
quite possibly.
Forget climate change. Forget all of that. Forget all of that. Should we treat the planet better than we do? The answer is yes. forget climate change. I don't care what your stance on it is. I really don't care. Who cares? Okay. What is important is that we are taking terrible care of this planet, and we call ourselves its custodian. We are the pinnacle of creation. Look at us, big brain. We can barely walk with our big brains, but we do not take care of this planet, and that's really the point here. Forget climate change. Forget it. Forget it. Should we be better stewards? The answer is yes. We should be better stewards. But greed is what's killing us. Greed is killing us, and ignorance, and me. I know, right? And me first. I want to be a billionaire. Me.
I love the
AI. I want to go to Mars. Me. I don't. You know what I say? I don't like the leader, and I don't like the AI. Come for me.
I want to give the AI a hug.
I do not like human hugs.
I asked Google last night if it could assist me sleeping because I was just in that mood, and it didn't know what I was talking about. So the time when it said to me, if you're having trouble sleeping, just ask, and I eventually did, and it didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Isn't it extraordinary?
It's just like any other boyfriend. They don't really listen. They talk a lot, but they don't really listen to you.
Only 5% of the words we say do we understand. Hey, there's no break. I just want to let everyone know. So, not quite sure what we're going to do. I've reached out to our producer, and we'll just see if it does start. It should have started. Maybe
this normally only happens at daylight.
It does.
Time changes, so.
I know. I know. So, Meki, I think what we'll do, I'll just have a quick break.
Okay.
And I'll just swap the streams over, and we'll start the other side of the show. Yeah.
That works for me, my friend.
Yeah, cool. All right, look, just take a short break, and only be 30 seconds or something like that, and we'll see you in a bit.